What little kid doesn't love to play spaceship? I know my 4-year-old does. We're constantly traveling to the moon, other planets, and beyond. He loves space toys, space books, space movies, anything with space he's into right now. We had a busy summer. We welcomed a new baby. And so during that period, I wanted to find a way to make my son feel special, as we were so busy. And so to do that, I started working on a bunch of space-themed projects for him. The first one was this control panel. Now this is just a prototype for that larger build I mentioned. And with it, I wanted to practice laser cutting, UV printing, making a very stylized control panel, really refine this process. It's been a big success. It's got toggle switches with safety covers, push buttons, a big alarm switch, lights. It plays audio from Apollo 11, from the movie Apollo 13, does a lot of really interesting things. He's really engaged with it, and it's, like I said, it served as a good prototype for the larger build. I'm excited to share it with you today, because it's a nice sized project, runs on a simple Arduino, and, like I said, it's a super engaging project for a little boy. See how I built this today on John Builds Things. For the design, I took inspiration from the Apollo command and lunar modules. Like I said, we watch Apollo 13 a lot in my house, and so the familiar look of the panel would be welcome. First, there's the engine readout. It's a cluster of 5 lights indicating the status of each engine. You can see a recreation of the real thing on Apollo 13, when their Saturn V's center engine cuts out early, during launch. Next to it is a large blue light to light up for lunar contact. Again, this is taken right from the Apollo program, as the lunar module had a similar big blue light to alert the crew when they had touchdown. For the controls, I had a little fun with it. I added 2 momentary push buttons for launch and land, and below them are a series of toggle switches for various functions. Space history fans, you'll immediately know what some of these do. Now finally, and my son's favorite button, is the master alarm. This was an alert indicator on the Apollo spacecraft that would light up with an accompanying loud buzzer to indicate any number of serious problems. Don't worry, there's no loud buzzing on this project. To contain all of this, I chose to laser cut a simple enclosure. This gave me more time to learn this massive laser cutter, and I think I'll be making many more of these boxes. Making them is incredibly easy on MakerCase.com. You just input your specs, and you get a vector file all ready to cut. At first I tried printing the panel on a raw sheet of acrylic, and then cutting it out on the laser. However, when I went to remove the masking tape on the acrylic that I had placed there to limit burning, it took with it a lot of the UV printed graphics. Scratch that approach. So I cut a clean piece of acrylic and then printed it. Getting the UV printer aligned exactly to the edges was a little tedious, but the finished product looked great with minimal misalignment noticeable. To give the enclosure and panel a real cockpit feel, I painted everything with this gray primer. I don't have a lot of experience with these type of laser cut boxes, and I thought, which seems silly now, painting it first, all flat on my workbench would be much better. But I didn't think about the glue seepage. Doing it again, I'd assemble and glue everything up first, sand it smooth, and then give a few coats of spray paint. Let me know in the comments if you have any tips for finishing these boxes. Let's take a look at how this code will work. I'm using an Adafruit soundboard that accepts commands over a serial interface. Because they are so awesome, Adafruit has provided all of the serial control wrapped in a simple library. We initialize that first, and then we initialize all the GPIO. Instead of using interrupts or debouncing libraries, I keep it simple in the main loop by just checking if the state of my inputs are low and performing the action for those. No debouncing is needed, because once one of these actions is triggered, we execute that in a loop until it completes. Here's what each button does. The launch button triggers the playing of the Apollo 11 launch audio sequence, lights up the engine indicators, and then after a few seconds, goes into an engine failure mode, blinking the center engine light and master alarm like shown in Apollo 13. This runs until the master alarm button goes into the low state when it's pressed. The land button triggers the playing of the Apollo 11 landing audio sequence, lights up the center engine, and then, once the audio reaches the part where they call out contact light, lights up the large blue indicator lamp and shuts off the engine indicator lamp. The SCE to aux button, a reference to an incident on Apollo 12 where the Saturn V was struck by lightning, just turns on the master alarm until that button goes into a low state when it's pressed. The O2 fan button, as Apollo 13 fans will know, was that fateful operation that ruptured the oxygen tanks, nearly killing them. Triggering this input plays an audio clip from the movie when the explosion occurs, and of course blinks the master alarm, until once again it goes back to the low state from a user press. Finally, the reentry switch displays audio of Alan Shepard's suborbital flight during his reentry. For assembly, this project was best suited to a plain old Arduino Uno. There isn't really any complexity to the code, and because the audio is being done by a separate board, I could just solder that onto a hat proto board and stick it onto the Arduino. Everything else is just GPIO. Whenever I do a project like this, I just start by tying all my grounds together. That feels like 80% of soldering, just grounding everything. One of the most fun things about this project are the toggle switches with the safety covers. They mimic what they used in the Apollo program, and they're just way too much fun to play with. I use them a lot on my other projects because they are fun, and here they add a lot of authenticity. There are actual reproduction switches available online that look just like what they had on Apollo, but they're pretty pricey. I do have one in my office that controls the lights, but that alone was just $50. When doing all this hookup soldering, it gives me an appreciation for the people who actually have to do it for real aircraft and spacecraft. It's so easy to bridge and short a connection, or not get a good bead of solder on a component. If you want a little reading to put you to sleep, take a look at NASA's guidelines on soldering. Needless to say, my work is not flight certified. When I do the larger version of this build in a few weeks, I will likely employ some more robust techniques. I'll do a PCB and use something more rugged for connections, like JSTs. For this one, it's fine to just wire everything directly in. And to finish it off, because this is just a prototype, I just superglued down the speakers and the battery pack. Let's see how that holds up to a 4-year-old. Here are some shots of the finished build. This was a quick one, but what really matters is just how much my little guy loves it. He's got a position in his rocket ship tent, right next to an old USB joystick that I gave him, and we're running missions to the moon and beyond every night after dinner, it seems. Stay tuned for more on this, because I've got a project in this theme underway that's much bigger and much more exciting. Thanks again for watching, and make sure to like the video and subscribe to John Builds Things.
4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.